Hello and welcome. My name is Stefanie Linhardt, Europe Editor at The Banker, and I'm here with Suma Chakrabarti, the President of the EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Thanks very much for making it.
Very good to see you again.
Well, thank you for having me here at your head offices in London. We are obviously ahead of the annual event, the EBRD meeting, which this year is in Cyprus. And when we were talking about it last year, when the announcement was made, there was hope that Cyprus would be reunited at this point in time. Obviously, it's not quite there yet. There have been discussions, but it's not the case. Is this having any impact on the logistics of the meeting? Is this having any impact on your further view and investment in Cyprus?
So I think when we planned the meeting in Cyprus, the reality of the situation was that we thought we might have political agreement, at least by now, on the reunification, and then a referendum maybe in the summer. So the EBRD annual meeting would have been just between those two events. As you say, the talks have taken longer. Very good to hear that they're having further meetings and that the pace will pick up again. And so I still think the annual meeting is actually at the right time, in the right place. During the annual meeting, we will no doubt be looking at the prospects for Cyprus. We've done very well in Cyprus. I mean, we've invested about 225 million euros already in a very short space of time and across now a range of sectors, not just the banks, which is where we started, but also Limassol Port, SMEs, and so on. So it's been a good start. And we've done some stuff in the north as well as the south, which I think was important operationally, but also important symbolically. In terms of how we run the annual meeting, I'm still very hopeful that we'll have events on both sides of the line in Nicosia. Obviously, the majority of the events, the official events, will be in the south. But also, it's very important to engage with the business community and others in the north as well. So we'll try and do some of that too.
Good. Well, in which way are you happy with the economic development? You said there's a lot of investment been made in Cyprus, economic development, but also the reform progress.
I think the really interesting thing about Cyprus was a recognition on the part of not just politicians and the administrative service, but also, let's say, the private sector, that the old business model of Cyprus, which was so dependent on the banking sector, was really now had to be changed. And what the Cypriots have done, therefore, is taken the IMF program and implemented it really, really well ahead of schedule, and growth has returned. You know, we're expecting, I think, 3% growth last year. It's going very much in the right direction, and therefore investors, I think, are returning to Cyprus. Of course, we all know Cyprus has a fantastic tourism industry, but more than that, actually, it's got more potential than that. And so we're thinking actually this is one of the best examples of a turnaround from the crisis that we have in Europe, and it's worth showcasing. And
obviously you've got a lot of other countries that you're operating in. 2015, the country that received the most investment was Turkey. So what was 2016 like, and why?
Well, Turkey was also our number one market in 2016 too. In both those years we achieved over 1.9 billion euros of EBRD investment, a whole load of projects, I think over 40 projects last year in Turkey, and it's quite a diversified set of projects. It's not one particular sector or another. We've got a range of projects across the sectors, and most importantly for a bank which is so private sector focused, 98% of our investments in Turkey are in the private sector. So it's been a very, very strong performance by the team in Turkey, but also supplemented obviously by the teams in London with that. So I'm very proud of what we've achieved so far.
There's some animosities going on between the Turkish leader, the President Erdogan, and some Western leaders. Is that having any impact on your work in the country?
Well, I think undoubtedly it's having an impact, not just that. I think the general political context actually, it's not just the sort of name calling across borders, but also within Turkey, post-coup attempt. I think the political context in Turkey is in a state of flux, a great deal of uncertainty, and that has having an impact, I think, on some foreign investors and some domestic investors in terms of adopting, let's say, a wait-and-see approach. Overall, in terms of our pipeline, it remains strong. I doubt we'll get to 1.9 billion again this year, but without a doubt, Turkey will be our number one market again this year. I think well above 1 billion, probably closer to 1.5, I would say. But let's see. I think we've had a strong first 3 or 4 months in Turkey this year already.
And you've got other countries, let's call it in the region, that have been added in the last few years. So we've had some Middle Eastern countries,
yes, indeed,
added. What's been the progress in those countries that we've seen in the last
I think quite remarkable.
years?
I think the very interesting broad point to make is normally regional development banks like EBRD, they stick to their region. And so in our case it would have been obviously Central Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. But because of the success of the private sector business model of EBRD, our shareholders asked us to go to countries which were never communist countries, never had command economies, always had some sort of mixed or market economy approach, and because they thought the business model was actually, in some sense, more important than geography. And we've had a very strong start in what we call SEMED, Southern Eastern Mediterranean. And we have 4 countries at the moment there, of course. We have Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt and Jordan. I'm very hopeful that Lebanon will start there very, very soon as well. And so far, the record in those countries, 5 billion euros of investment already, a wide range of projects. And one of the 2 areas I'll highlight in particular, we know that youth unemployment has been a big problem in this region. And it's an economic problem, but it's also a social and political problem. And it's very important, therefore, to try and grow that part of the economy which can absorb more of these youngsters coming into the labour market, particularly SMEs. So the push on SME development has been very, very strong, very important. I also think this region is a bit of a poster child for EBRD's work on what we call the green economy transition. So renewables, for example, big solar projects that we've pushed in Jordan. We hope to do more of that also in Egypt as well in the coming months. In Morocco, it's been very much the wind project. And so, this is actually not just great to have this extra geography where our business model can do good things, but it's also, again, a place where we can model some of the new ways of working, new types of instruments we have, and that's working very well as well.
Good. Well, one thing I have to ask you, obviously we are in Europe and
Indeed.
Brexit is something that's being discussed all over Europe, one of the big topics constantly. Are the negotiations of Britain leaving the EU going to have an impact on the EBRD, on the region?
So there are usually 2 parts to this question, aren't there? Well, first of all, let me just dismiss immediately the question of where is EBRD's headquarters going to be. It's staying in London. The EBRD is not a EU institution. We have shareholders from all 5 continents of the world. London is an excellent place in terms of linkage to the wider development diaspora, to the city and other places. So this is a good place to have headquarters. I don't see that changing. The more interesting and important question in a way is what will happen to our countries of operations depending on how Brexit is conducted. And our analysis so far suggests a lot depends on the type of Brexit. If the Brexit, I'll put 2 poles, right? One end of the pole is really a very hard Brexit. UK leaves the single market, UK stops paying into the EU budget. That could have quite a negative impact on some of our countries of operation, particularly in southeastern Europe, I think. If the UK was to have a milder form of Brexit, so some form of engagement still with the single market, still paying something into the EU budget, the effects then are quite marginal, actually, for our countries of operation. So we'll have to see a lot in the next 18, 19 months, what exactly happens on this, where are we heading. If it is of the harder variety, I think the EBRD will need to step up because we act often in a quite counter-cyclical way. So if an economy is going through more trouble because of, let's say, the type of Brexit, then I think EBRD will have to try and step up with others, with other multilaterals, more financing for those economies.
An interesting time ahead.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Suma Chakrabarti.
Thank you.